I didn't see the chandelier first. I saw her. A tilt of the head that should have been a ghost, the small forward lean before a laugh, the way muscle memory recognizes a wound before the mind does. Crystal light dripped over marble, and money spoke in hushes, but the ballroom fell thin as paper when the bride turned and our eyes locked across a corridor of strangers. Breathe. Michael murmured surgeon steady at my back, and I pretended I was not 12 again, hiding in a coat closet or 21 on a curb under rain. We earned our place here, he added, and I believed him right up until I saw my sister wearing white and another woman's last name. I kneel to rescue Leo from his bow tie, my 6-year-old soldier whispering, "Mom, this thing is trying to choke me," and I press a smile into the knot. 10 minutes, I tell him, behavior now, swimming pool later, and when I rise, the sea of guests parts like a stage direction. Grace I say to no one and to everything at once. She freezes the champagne flute stuttering in her fingers. Behind her, my mother flushes. My father broadens like a door closing, and the echo that used to be home gathers into a hiss. "What are you doing here?" I lift my chin, because I promised the girl I was that I would never bow again. Michael steps forward first. He often does voice quiet, posture steel. My wife is a guest. She's the CEO of Moldova. We were invited by the groom. The name ripples outward, and I hear it move Moldova like the discreet intake of air before a decision is made. Dr. Daniel Brooks, whose last name on the invitation had slipped past me like a harmless tide, approaches, with polite confusion, sharpened by curiosity. "You know the CEO of Moldova?" he asks my parents, then turns to me with a small recalibration in his eyes. "We've been trying to partner with them for months. Your patient monitoring system is changing post-surgical care. I could detonate the moment. I could unpack 11 years of silence and let it stack in the center of this immaculate room. Instead, I choose the smallest blade. Hello, Grace. Congratulations." The word lands heavier than a shout. Her smile holds the shape of grace without the strength of it, and I feel the old shame rise and then dissolve, as if I have finally learned how to breathe underwater. A woman in burgundy grips my hand and says my name like a memo she's been trying to place. "Your presentation last month," she blurts, "brilliant," and the compliment feels like a postcard from the life I built while my family told everyone I had none. Across the room, Grace nods through a conversation about platelet therapy trends, her voice pitched perfect, her facts a half step behind. A physician frowns. Didn't Stanford move away from that approach 3 years ago, and I see it. Daniel's arms slip an inch from her waist, that first tiny drift that can become an ocean if weather holds. My father stalks toward me with the authority he believes was minted with his MD. "You need to leave," he says, body turned to block me from the room he can no longer control. I let Michael's hand rest on my arm and anchor without chain. "We were invited," I answer evenly. "Perhaps you should explain why that upsets you." He sneers the word company as if it were a disease. Michael does not blink. "She was the keynote in Boston," he replies, and nearby faces tilt to catch the name they already know. I feel the network of recognition stitching itself around me, quiet as a seam. "Mom, can I have cake now?" Leo interrupts, eyes bright and unburdened, and for a second the ballroom warms. He studies the bride. "Is that lady your friend?" The question is a kind scalpel. "She's my sister," I say, and the word sister crosses the marble like a bell. Stanford Daniel asks, turning back to me with a different interest. "Class of 2014. I meet his searching with simple truth. No, community college, then state. I worked 3 jobs. His jaw flexes, not judgment calculation. Somewhere behind him, my mother performs a smile for the nearest ears. Amber has always sought attention, she announces, and the old script crumbles on my tongue like ash. Michael lifts the gentlest knife. "You mean attention, like sleeping on friends' couches after you took her tuition." The silence that follows is not empty. It is crowded with the things people realize when no one saves them from it. Grace drifts closer, pulled by a current she can neither name nor escape. Daniel's colleagues recognize my work out loud. The predictive algorithms, the reduced readmissions at Northwestern, the pilot in 4 states becoming 5. And his face shifts from warmth to doubt to something like grief. A memory flashes the rain, the suitcase, the slammed door that taught me the only shelter I could rely on was the one I built. I square my shoulders in Valentino, and for the first time in this room, feel entirely myself. And then my father raises his voice over the hum. This is Grace's wedding. Let's focus on her accomplishments. And the silence that follows is a verdict no one needs to announce. The mirror in the bathroom glows under cold light. Grace's reflection trembles, her mascara wand clattering against marble. "Why are you doing this to me?" She demands, her voice breaking at the edge of fury and fear. I wash my hands slowly, the motion deliberate, the sound of water, filling the pause between us. Doing what? Exactly, I ask, though I know the answer. Ruining my wedding, she says, tears, cutting paths through the makeup, meant to armor her, making Daniel question everything. I meet her eyes in the mirror. I'm not doing anything I tell her softly. I'm just existing. She stares at me as if the word existing is an act of violence. You were supposed to stay gone. The sentence lands like a confession she didn't mean to make. For a heartbeat, I see the girl she once was, the one who watched from the window when I left in the rain but never opened the door. They told everyone you failed, she whispers, that you dropped out, that you couldn't handle responsibility. I dry my hands and turn to face her fully. And yet, here I am, I say, handling quite a lot. When I step back into the ballroom, the air feels different. The chatter has shifted its current. It flows toward me now, drawn by curiosity and quiet power. A neurosurgeon leans close to Michael, discussing patient monitoring data. An administrator hands me her card, murmuring about expanding implementation. Your system reduced our complication rates by 30%, she says, and I nod, absorbing the words as if they belong to someone else. Daniel stands beside her, listening intently, questions forming in the space between his skepticism and belief. Grace hovers at the periphery, her pearl earrings trembling with each strained smile. Father storms forward, puffed up with wounded pride. "Daniel," he barks, "this is Grace's wedding. Let's focus on her accomplishments." But the room no longer listens to him. The silence that follows drowns his authority. Michael catches my gaze from across the floor. He's already freeing himself from conversation, his small nod signaling the same thought pulsing through my veins. It's time. Are we leaving now? Leo tugs my hand, his excitement a lifeline. Swimming pool time, yes. Buddy, I say, smoothing his hair. Just one more thing. I reach into my clutch for a small cream-colored envelope. Inside lies a Moldova stock certificate, not enough to wound, but enough to remind. A quiet exhale of power, measured and precise. We find Daniel near the bar. His posture is polite, his eyes searching. "We're heading out," I tell him, extending the envelope. "Congratulations again." He accepts it, sincerity softening his face. "Thank you for coming," he says, his gaze flicking toward my parents, who hover like vultures near the exit. And for the invitation, I reply, meaning it more than he could know. He leans slightly closer. "I'd like to visit Moldova sometime." He murmurs, the professional curiosity tinged with something deeper. Perhaps the realization that the truth has been standing beside him all night. "Have your assistant arrange it?" I say, sliding him my card. Grace watches from a distance, her expression cracking under the weight of her perfect mask. Mother approaches, rehearsed charm sharpened to a blade. Amber was always so ambitious, she says to a nearby guest. Of course, she had advantages Grace didn't. I almost laugh. Michael doesn't. Advantages, he asks mildly. Like 3 jobs and no home after you took her tuition money. The words slice through the room like a scalpel through silk. Faces turn. Grace's mouth tightens. Father steps forward, trying to reclaim the old rhythm of control. "You can't just waltz back into our lives," he says, his voice shaking with a rage he can't disguise. I look at him, this man who once terrified me, and feel nothing. I'm not here to walk back into anything I answer quietly. I built my own life exactly as you forced me to. The memory of that night rain suitcase, the echo of a slammed door flickers behind my eyes, but it no longer hurts. It's history, not a wound. Leo tugs at my hand again. "Aren't those people your family, Mom?" The question lands with devastating innocence. I kneel to his level and meet his gaze. "They're relatives, sweetheart," I say softly. "Family is something different." Father opens his mouth, searching for control, but I speak first. "Thank you," I say, "for not giving me a chance. You made me build my own." My mother's smile falters. Father looks as though he swallowed his own voice. The girl they cast out has grown into a woman who doesn't need their approval to stand. We leave without haste, without spectacle, the three of us, Michael, Leo, and me, crossing the marble as whispers trail behind, like rain that can no longer touch us. In the lobby's soft light, Leo spins in delight. "Pool time," he cheers. 10 minutes. Michael tells him, tousling his hair. As the elevator doors slide shut, I catch our reflection in the mirrored glass, a family forged not by blood but by choice, by endurance, by truth. Some weddings mark beginnings. This one was an ending, the quiet burial of a story that no longer belonged to me. Sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office, catching on the steel edges of awards and the clean lines of glass paperweights. 1 month had passed since Grace's wedding, but the echo of that night lingered like the soft hum of a machine you've forgotten to turn off. Boston Memorial's proposal lay open across my desk, 8 figures in contracts, hundreds of hospitals waiting for approval, numbers I once couldn't dream of, now merely metrics to manage. "Dr. Daniel Brooks is here to see you." Meredith's voice crackled through the intercom, and for a heartbeat the world tilted. I hadn't spoken to him since that night. "Send him in," I said, my voice steady, though my hand paused over the pen. He entered like a man still carrying the ghost of a storm. Shoulders slightly hunched, the perfect wedding tuxedo now replaced by a rumpled suit, exhaustion etched under his eyes. "Thank you for seeing me." He began, not sitting, until I gestured toward the chair. "Coffee?" I offered, a reflex more than courtesy. He shook his head. "I can't stay long." I waited. Silence, I'd learned, was often more persuasive than words. "I've spoken to a lawyer," he said finally, "about annulment." His eyes didn't quite meet mine. Everything Grace told me was a lie. She never attended Stanford. She never managed the clinic. She was their receptionist. The words landed between us, solid and inevitable. "She told you what she needed to believe," I said quietly. He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture of a man unraveling. "It goes deeper. The clinic's billing records there are irregularities, fraud amber, Medicare fraud. Your parents have been overcharging using outdated codes, billing for procedures never performed. Grace helped them do it. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the faint ticking of the wall clock. I felt the weight of it settle, not as surprise, but as confirmation, the shadow of something I'd sensed years ago. 15 years, he said. That's how far back it goes, right around the time you left for college. I exhaled slowly. They used my college fund for Grace, I said, more to the window than to him. When I found out, they told me I wasn't Stanford material anyway. Daniel winced. "The irony," he murmured, "is that you've achieved more real impact in medicine than any of us." His gaze drifted across the office, the screens, the charts, the framed photograph of Leo holding a Medova prototype like it was magic. "I didn't mean to drag you into this," he continued, "but your name appears in the old clinic files, then vanishes. I needed to know why." "Because they erased me," I said. "They couldn't afford a truth that didn't fit their story." He nodded, understanding flickering behind his eyes. The authorities are investigating now. I reported it anonymously. I couldn't stay quiet. His voice trembled, not from guilt, but from the weary clarity of a man who has chosen integrity over comfort. My phone buzzed a message from Michael, picking up Leo early. Zoo Day. Join us. A warmth spread through me, grounding the moment in the life I had built, not the one that had rejected me. What will you do? I asked. Cooperate. File for annulment. Start over, he said. Then after a pause, do you plan to get involved in the investigation? The question hung like smoke. I could destroy them completely. One phone call from the CEO of Moldova and their empire of deceit would collapse overnight. But destruction was a younger woman's hunger. No, I said finally. I built my life separate from theirs. I intend to keep it that way. Relief softened his expression. Thank you for your time, and I'm sorry for everything. After he left, I stood by the window watching traffic flow far below tiny glints of movement, tracing the rhythm of a world that had finally learned to move without them. My computer pinged a new email. The header bore the seal of the Medicare Fraud Investigation Division. They were requesting information about my time at Collins Family Practice. Attached was a statement form, my testimony. I could ignore it, delete it, pretend I never saw it. But then I thought of the patients' elderly men and women who trusted their doctors, who signed papers without knowing they'd been stolen from. I'll send them the old records I told Michael when he called. Nothing more, nothing less, just the truth. I'm proud of you, he said softly. You don't need revenge when the truth already shines brighter. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail from Grace, the third this week. The first had begged for money. The second threatened to tell Leo who I really was. I didn't bother listening to the third. I pressed delete and the small motion felt larger than any victory. Leo wants to see the tiger cubs. Michael reminded me, his voice pulling me back to warmth. Tell him I'm on my way. I gathered my bag, looked once more at the glowing skyline and smiled. The view I'd built was clean, bright, and entirely my own. The sun leaned low over the garden, pouring gold across rows of green. 6 months had passed since the wedding, and life had finally quieted into something that felt like peace. I knelt among the pepper plants, the soil cool beneath my fingers, the air sweet with the scent of lemon balm and fresh-cut grass. Mom, can I water the tomatoes? Leo called, his Batman cape fluttering as he ran between the raised beds. Start with the peppers, I said, pointing to their drooping leaves. They're thirsty today. He nodded solemnly, filling his tiny watering can with a focus that made my chest ache with pride. Michael stepped through the patio door, sunlight haloing him as he carried a tray of lemonade. Reinforcements, he announced with mock gravity, handing a glass to Leo, then to me. His hands, the same hands that performed delicate surgeries on damaged hearts, looked perfectly at home holding something as simple as a sweating glass of lemonade. Thank you, good sir, Leo said, bowing dramatically. Michael laughed, tousling his hair. It was ordinary, perfectly quietly ordinary, and that more than anything felt like triumph. The Davis Hospital Board approved the system, Michael said after a moment, his tone casual but his eyes bright. I blinked, realizing the weight of his words. The 5th major hospital chain in a single year. Moldova had grown beyond even my wildest plans. Thousands more patients would recover safely because of what we built. That's number 5, Leo said, holding up his fingers proudly. Mom's helping all the sick people get better faster. I smiled, my throat tightening. That's the idea, buddy. Then the doorbell rang. Michael frowned, expecting someone. Probably FedEx, I said, wiping my hands on my jeans. But when he came back from the front door, his expression had changed. In his hand was a certified envelope. The return address made my stomach tighten before he even said her name. Grace Collins Brooks. I stared at it for a long moment before speaking. I'll be in my office." The envelope sat untouched for 17 minutes while I finished reviewing quarterly projections. When I finally opened it, the paper inside was thick, cream-colored, her handwriting, painfully careful. Amber. The clinic closed last month, not because of you, but because of everything Mom and Dad did. The investigation found billing fraud going back 15 years. Daniel left me. He said he couldn't build a life with someone he couldn't trust. He was right. I'm not writing to ask for money. I know better now. I just need to tell you that you were never the problem. I was raised to believe your strength was a threat, your independence a betrayal. I believed them when they said cutting you off was necessary. I was wrong. They were wrong, and I'm sorry. Grace. I read it twice. Then I folded it neatly and placed it back in its envelope. Michael leaned against the doorway, his presence steady. "What does it say?" he asked gently. "An apology," I said. "A real one, I think." He nodded, waiting. "What will you do?" "Nothing dramatic," I said finally. I sat at my desk, opened a blank document, and began typing. The words came quietly, cleanly. When I finished, I printed a single page, sealed it in a Moldova envelope, and placed it beside Grace's letter. 2 weeks later, I found myself standing on the upper balcony of the American Medical Technology Conference in Chicago. Below Moldova's booth, buzzed with energy, our latest innovations drawing a crowd. I watched as doctors, investors, and journalists gathered around our display screens, their conversations full of curiosity and praise. Then I saw her. Grace stood near the education pavilion, her hair pulled back, wearing simple, pale blue scrubs. No pearls, no pretense. She was listening to a speaker talk about entry-level medical coding certification. When she turned her eyes, met mine across the crowd. No gasps, no tension, just a quiet recognition. In her hands, she held the Moldova internship application I'd mailed her 2 weeks before. She didn't approach, and neither did I. Some stories don't need second chapters. They need closure. I gave her a small nod, not forgiveness, not approval, just acknowledgement. She returned it, eyes bright with something fragile but real. Determination, maybe. That night, I signed the final documents establishing the Collins First Generation Medical Scholarship, not in honor of my parents, but in reclamation of our name. 20 students each year, full tuition and mentorship for those without family support. The kind of chance I never had. Back home, the garden was glowing in the soft amber of late afternoon. Leo knelt beside me, pressing a seed into dark soil. Some plants don't grow well next to others, I explained, spacing them out carefully. They need room to thrive. He looked up at me, eyes wide, like people. The simplicity of it caught me off guard. I smiled, brushing soil from his cheek, exactly like people. Through the window, Michael moved easily in our kitchen, setting the table, humming softly. I looked at the life we'd built, honest, imperfect hours, and felt the quiet truth settle in my bones. Some roots you're given, others you plant yourself. If this story moved, you don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, what's the moment that made you realize you could grow beyond the past?